Thank you all so much for joining us today. This is a webinar on how to experience the Canadian Rockies with Mountain Travel Sobek. We're really blessed to be joined today by Etienne Labelle. Etienne is a fantastic expert on the Canadian Rockies. It's a place he has called home for quite a while, and we're blessed to have him join us today. Etienne, please come in, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you. I'd love to know how you began guiding in the Canadian Rockies. How did that kind of all get started for you? And I think most importantly, what do you love about being a guide in the Canadian Rockies?
For sure. Thank you, Josh. Thanks everyone for being here this morning. Before I get into introducing myself, I just want to point out our office is here in the Canadian Rockies, located pretty close to the G7 summit. And it's been F-18 flying over my office all morning long. So if at some point you can't hear me, I'll just give it a couple of seconds there to let the jets go by, and then I'll continue on my presentation. So yeah, about guiding. Super excited to talk about the trips here that we have in the Canadian Rockies with Mount Sobek coming this summer. Myself, I grew up in the French-speaking province of Quebec, so near Montreal. I've been living near Banff since 2012, so it's been almost 13 years now. This summer will mark my 10th summer as a guide in the Rockies. I got started through meeting friends, working at a remote backcountry lodge in the winter 10 years ago. One of the person I worked with was a cycling guide on the road that connects Jasper to Banff. And she was telling me about her job, and I was thinking to myself, man, that sounds like an amazing thing to do, to just be out there every day with people, biking, hiking. And, I kind of said to her, I'd love to do that. So I got started, like I said, 10 years ago, and through time moved on to mostly guiding here around Banff in the Lake Louise area, hiking trips. So it's been a nice transition. And really why I'm still guiding is I don't think there's a better job around here than guiding. There's just that special aspect of being out in nature every day with people that want to be there. There's a reason why I still live here. It's because it's one of the most beautiful and impressively, visually impressive location that we have here in the North American offerings. And, being out there with you guys, sharing those small moments of coming around the corner and seeing some of the views like you have here of Peyto Lake, it's just like, there's nothing that compares it. And yeah, that's why I'm still doing it. So excited to kick off the season here in a couple weeks. I was just out there 2 days ago hiking, and it was kind of weird hiking just by myself. I'm usually with other people in groups, guiding, and I'm just so excited for it.
Oh, that sounds great. And this photo here, what did you say this lake is? Peyto Lake?
Peyto Lake. Yes, that is the highest point on the Icefield Parkway, which is the road I was mentioning. That's where I got my start guiding. That's near Lake Louise, about 40-minute drive, and that's the headwater of the walk to Icefield. So that's one of the location we will visit on our summer trip.
Fantastic. Speaking of locations, and that, where exactly are the Canadian Rockies? And obviously in Canada. Where in Canada, and how do you best get there?
For sure. So the Canadian Rockies, they're located along the continental divide between the province of Alberta and British Columbia. There are long extents of mountain range there. The easiest way to get to the Rockies for you guys will be to fly into Calgary Airport. And from there, there's going to be shuttle services that will take you directly from the airport to Banff. It's about an hour and a half drive. And then once we get to Banff, that's where the adventure starts on all of our departures. Depending which departure you're on, you may stay in Banff or you may move on to Lake Louise. But basically, most of the trips will be spent in that Banff National Park corner. Some trips will go up to Jasper as well. And together, the national park that you're seeing on the maps They cover roughly 7,800 square miles of land. So if you're into prime location, wildlife, wilderness, true wilderness, there's nothing that really beats the Canadian Rockies for that.
Just incredible. Beautiful images here.
Mm-hmm.
What makes the Canadian Rockies so special, and why are people drawn to this area?
When I think of the Rockies, I think of especially those national parks. It's untouched wilderness. So Parks Canada, the governing body of those national parks, has done an amazing job over the years to really preserve the ecosystem and the ecological integrity of the area. So for us, wherever we're going to be visiting, you can expect to see, untouched landscape. Really, we're putting a tremendous amount of effort into minimizing our footprint on the landscape. So wherever we're visiting, you'll see there's no alteration to the landscape, or if there's any, it's very minimal. Everything is really focused on that ecosystem and the preservation of it. And so for us, having that as the forefront, and then on top of it, then we can talk about the mountains, the glaciers, the lakes, the rivers that we have here in the Canadian Rockies. There's, in terms of access, and if you're into that wilderness, there's no parallel here in North America. It's easy access, and then once you get here, what you will be able to see and experience, it's like nowhere else. It's just the trails, everything. I can go on forever talking about it. But once we dive more into the trips, I'll be able to share a bit more about each parks and what's amazing about them and what sets them apart.
Yeah, 4 national parks in a condensed area. That's pretty special to have.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What makes Mountain Travel Sobek trips truly unique among all the options that are out there?
For sure. I mean, so in our offering that we have here in the Canadian Rockies, we have 2 summer trips. One is a lodge-based trip. The other one is a camping-based trip. And then we also offer a snowshoe trip, or winter trip, I should say. I think what sets us apart from the competition is the way we've laid out our trip. We're trying to visit in that week-long of trip that we have. We're trying to visit some of the most famous and iconic landscape, and as well as taking you to places that are not as travel often. So for us, it's a big thing when we design the trips. Also, the fact that all of our trips are kind of more on the base camp type trip, meaning that we're not going to have to ask you to pack your bags every night and move to a different location. You can really settle in, kind of take in the space, and really kind of integrate yourself in the landscape and where we're going to be visiting, whether it's on the lodge-based trip where you'll be staying at the same hotel, you can unpack, or the camping trip where you'll be at the same campground, you don't have to pack the tent every night. It really makes for an experience that is a bit more seamless, and also it accentuates the amount of time we can have on the trails because we don't have to have those transfer every day, which I think really sets us apart from others.
That's a great point. You get there, unpack your bags, get comfortable, make it your home away from home, and then really immerse yourself in the surrounding environment. I love it. Let's check out more of these trips in detail. This is a stunning photo. Where's this at?
That is Wilcox Pass. That's in Jasper National Park.
Beautiful. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into that first trip you talked about, the lodge-based trip. Can you tell me what are the highlights of this trip? And, who's this trip ideal for? What type of guests?
Absolutely. So the lodge-based trip, it's based out of one hotel in Banff. So like Josh was mentioning, the fact that you can unpack your bag, it's really designed for those that are looking for more comfort throughout the week. The fact that you don't have to camp, having your own hotel room, bathroom, it goes a long ways. On that trip, you'll be visiting 3 different national parks. So most of the trip is spent in Banff, but you're also going across the continental divide into British Columbia, into Kootenay National Park, and Yoho National Park. Speaking of Yoho National Park, if I look at the trip overall, one of my highlight personally of that trip is the Iceland Trail that we do on that trip on day 3. It's a spectacular trail in Yoho National Park. It starts off at the Takaka Fall trailhead, which Takaka Fall is the second largest waterfall that we have here in Canada. So you don't only get to see, beautiful scenery, you get to see kind of a very unique aspect of the mountain. And throughout the week, we'll be discovering different corners of the national parks, with stops at all the iconic locations. Like you can see on the photo, far left is Peyto Lake, then you have Lake Louise. Then we get to see some caribous if you're really lucky on high mountain passes. They're kind of hard to see nowadays, but we still on some occasions see them. And then you're based out of Banff, so you get to experience the town of Banff. Banff is an historical mountain town. It's the birthplace of our national park, founded in 1885. The sole purpose of Banff was for tourism. So as crazy as it may sound, but the way the main avenue, the main road is located, it's pictured directly with one of the mountain that we have in town here called Cascade. So it's just framed perfectly. And then throughout the week, like I was saying, exploring different national park, whether you're going on the Icefield Parkway to hike in Helen Lake area where, in the height of summer, we'll get carpets of wildflowers in the meadows up there, to visiting Mooring Lake and Eiffel Lake, which is my favorite hike in the Rockies. And then we'll be visiting other corner of the national park, such as in Kootenay, when we go to Stain Glacier. You'll have peaks towering over you, glaciers tumbling towards you. It's so impressive. And something really that is unique on that trip is how we've designed the itinerary to finish off the last dinner on top of Sulphur Mountain, which is one of the surrounding peaks of Banff. We'll board the gondola to get to dinner, and then our tables will all going to be along this tall ceilings, about a 10-foot windows, pardon me, overlooking the entire Bow Valley. So you'll be able to see the town of Banff all the way to Lake Louise. It's really, really unique, and it's really impressive. And something that's also really awesome about that trip is the months that it goes through. So we'll start in June, stretching all the way to September. June, you'll get, residual snow on the peaks from the winter, so it gives you really a dramatic looks to the mountain. Then you get July and August, beautiful summer months where it's definitely warm, or warmer, I should say, depending where you're from. And in September, once we get into fall hiking, it's kind of a shift there in the season, so you can kind of start to see on the next slide the photos of the larch, which we'll talk about in a second, and then the fact that you're again at the hotel, you're super comfortable the whole week.
This trip really sounds great for people who are active hikers, want to get out and see just incredible scenery, dramatic landscapes, wildlife, but like the comfort of returning to a hotel each evening, being able to unpack their bags, refresh in the hotel room, maybe even explore the historic town of Banff in the evening, and then get up the next day again for a brand new adventure.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. Here's a few photos from that trip. Are these the larch trees that you're talking about down here in the corner?
Correct. Those are larch trees. So you'll see those. That's in the Mooring Lake area. So the peaks that you look at the background there, they're part of the 10 peaks. So if you've seen pictures of Mooring Lake, it has those prominent peaks at the back of the lake. Those are those peaks, but they're seen from different angles. So that's when you get that transition in September. Sometimes, at night we'll get a bit of fresh snow on the mountain tops, and then those trees turn gold. So it makes for dramatic photography in September, especially. It's when the sun starts to peak at a lower angle in the sky. So that angle creates this amazing element of photography there. So the photos are absolutely stunning. The top left photos, that's near Mooring Lake as well. That's one of our hike that we do there. And that's a picture of Lake Annette and Mount Temple, which is the third highest peak in the park. It's hard to see because of the clouds, but there's a huge glacier that kind of tumbled over the cliff there. And then on the right side, that's in Kootenay National Park.
Wow. A little bit more about these larch trees. I'm intrigued.
Hmm.
You come to this lake in the summer and you would think these are just all evergreen conifer trees, but here we're seeing that they're changing color. They're dropping their needles. Is that correct?
Correct. So the larch are kind of they're a bit like, not to go into a scientific aspect of it, but it's really kind of a conifer tree for most of the year, and then it turns into a deciduous tree as the fall arrives. So the needles will turn gold, and then they will fall. Once they fall, what's amazing about it is it makes carpets of golden needles on the ground. But the large season is so short-lived that the trip we have in September, it's kind of prime time for seeing this kind of landscape. As you extend further in the season, once all the large trees have fallen, so all the needles have fallen, then you don't get the same kind of um, landscape that is really moving and dramatic.
Yeah.
It's not it doesn't get bad. It's just different. That's why we've chose to pick that week in September, just to have that aspect of the large trees.
To add that sort of natural event that's occurring there, and it looks absolutely stunning.
It's
Um,
it's one of a kind,
yeah,
definitely
and I
one of a
learned
kind.
something today. How about that?
Good.
All right, let's take a look at this second trip.
Hmm.
Again, summertime based trip in the Canadian Rockies. A lot of the same trails, but this time we're camping. What's
Correct.
what's really unique about this trip?
So what's unique is really the camping aspect. First off, you're not only camping. The first night of the trip is at a hotel in Banff. So you can settle in the first night, you arrive in Banff, you explore the town side. We don't spend any extended period of time in Banff. So that one night on your own there really allows you to walk around the town, walk along the Bow River, um, go into the restaurant and the shops that Banff has to offer. And then we move to the Lake Louise campground for 4 nights. And that's really, I think, what's the most unique aspect of that trip is the camping aspect. Being in Lake Louise, it gives you a bit more freedom and a quicker access to the great hiking that the area offers. Lake Louise itself is known as the hiking capital of Canada. The lake itself has just over 300 kilometers of trail surrounding it. We don't just hike those trails, we go everywhere into different national parks. But just having that as a base camp, it's really unique and really an aspect that we love about that trip. It really kind of gives us more freedom. The main difference with that trip in comparison to the lodge-based trip is we go into Jasper National Park. So if you remember the photo from a couple slides ago of the meadow and that huge peak, that's one trail that we get to go because we don't have as much driving to get there. And then another aspect that's amazing about that trip is will mix a bit of the activities. So there's one day where we're going to be hiking near Lake Louise, and then the afternoon we go rafting on the Kicking Horse River. So
Oh,
for those of you that have never been whitewater rafting, it's exciting. It's amazing. I've seen so many guests over the years being very nervous about it. It's a really well-run operation that we go to there. They take such good care of us. We'll have usually one boat, or two boats for the group with our guides. They give us all the commands on how to raft properly. There's a section of the river that you can walk if you're not comfortable with the rapids. But on a hot summer day, it's just amazing. You're in the river, it
yes.
splashes on you. And then come back at night, and you're sitting at the campground. It's amazing. The way we have this campground set up, we'll get into it in a couple minutes, but just having that aspect of you're always outside in the mountains, and the campground doesn't have really good reception. So it's a bit of a digital detox at the same time. So if you want to get away from the busyness of, your phone work, that's a trip that it's kind of perfect for that.
That's great. I'm so glad you pointed that out. So if I understood correct, this trip is unique in that it gets to visit all four of the national parks.
Yes.
Um, we do get the taste of Banff. You get a little bit of nightlife scene in Banff that first night, and then we really emerge into the experience. And like the first lodge-based trip, we go out and do these incredible hikes each day, but then we sort of continue that outdoor experience all through the evening by staying in the campground there at Lake Louise.
Yes, absolutely.
That sounds fabulous. Can you tell me a little bit more about the camp setup and what should a guest expect on the camping portion of this trip?
Absolutely. So the way we work is on that trip, when the guests arrive at the campground on Monday morning, when we pick you up in Banff, the camp has already been set up by the guides. So the guys will go the night before and put up all the tents. And the way we have it set up is we have 5 sites, 4 are for guests and tents only. And one site is what we call our base camp sites, where we'll have multiple picnic table laid out with tarps covering them. So if it's really sunny, gives us shade, and if it's raining, then we're covered. We'll have a fire pit there. So if there's no fire ban in effect, then we'll have fires every night, chairs around the campground, around the fire pit. Sorry, that's where we'll do sometimes some of the cooking as well. So it's really unique in that sense. All you have to bring with you is a sleeping bag and a pillow. And then I'll cover more about kind of my tips of stuff that you really want to have in your bags for that trip. But having, the campground there, it's unique in the sense also that it's in prime grizzly bear habitat, and some people might get scared about it. But Parks Canada has done an amazing job at building a fence around the sites that we're going to be camping at, and it's an electric fence, so it really keeps the bear away from us.
Okay.
Also at the campground, we're not roughing it. It's more almost like I would call it like glamping, glamorous camping, where we have showers, flushing toilet, running water. So, and there's also power outlets so we can charge your phone at night, so you can snap photos. But on your way to the shower, you're passing these meadows where in the past we've seen a grizzly bear mom with cubs there sometimes at night, and it's right along the river. So that combination is just so nice. There's a creek that runs to the campground, so if you want to dunk yourself after a hot day, it's all there, and it's within about 15 minutes walking distance from the village of Lake Louise. It's a very small village, but you have all the essentials there. There's a sports store, so if you forgot some gear and you realize when you get to the campground, you can walk over there. We can drop you off. You can get whatever you need. There's a liquor store, candy store. There's a bit of a market. So if we don't have, or if you're craving something, it's easy to get. So that's the aspect of the camping, that it's not just roughing it. It's really kind of more that glamping aspect of exploring the Rockies.
Yeah, I'd say so. Coming into a camp that's fully set up,
Mm-hmm.
hot showers, flushing toilets. You mentioned the guides cook all of the meals. What sort of meals could we expect to eat?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm so sorry. I forgot to. Yes, the cooking is all made by the guides. So the way we operate, we have a trailer that we packed all of our cooking equipments in there. So the guides will be making meals from scratch or that we prep here at our office ahead of time. So like right now, after this webinar, I'm going to be prepping some spaghetti sauce that my grandma, used to make me. So homemade cooked meals. And then in the morning, we have 3 picnic tables, and all 3 picnic tables are filled with food every day. So you'll be able to make your lunch, decide what you want to have in your lunch. We have breakfast every morning. Guys will make anything from kind of the traditional scrambled eggs and hash browns to like they do French toast, but they use croissant for it. Some of our guides are French Canadians, such as me, so they love anything like that. And then once we return at night, there's always a snack post hike. So whether it's we'll make hot nachos on the barbecue, or we'll have a cheese board, and then it'll be followed by dinners. Dinners, we're trying to keep it high in protein, very nutritious. So like I said, like either a night of pasta, we'll do a night of Greek, so chicken skewers or veggie skewers, fresh made Greek salads. And then we do another night where we do a lemongrass chicken or tofu with rice and fresh vegetables to just kind of keep it, light after a big day of hiking, but also nutritious. And then the final night on that trip is at the historical train station in Lake Louise. It's a restaurant, but it's also a museum. So it's really nice. It, makes us go out, so we don't have to eat at the campsite, and then we return the next after the meals. And then we go to bed, and then we wake up the next day for a final hike.
That sounds fabulous. And now we're all hungry after hearing the run through of the menu.
I'm hungry too.
Thank you. What are we looking at here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So far left photo, that's in the Morin Lake area. That's a hike that we have on both trip because it's probably the most spectacular and visually striking hike that we have in kind of near Lake Louise. It's called Heifel Lake. That's the way back from the lake where we'll have lunch. So you have views on the Bidden glaciers and all tumbling glaciers coming towards the lake. The top right photo, that's a picture of Lake Louise at the bottom, as well as it's hard to tell. There's two other lakes that we kind of see in the forest there. You have Mirror Lake and Lake Agnes. So that's the circuit we'll do the morning of rafting. And then we go, like I was mentioning, rafting in the afternoon. And then the bottom right photo, that's on Wilcox Pass. That trail is so unique because it starts off at such a high elevation, about 6,000 feet from sea level. There's very little forest, and then most of the trail, about 90% of it, is all subalpine. So no trees at all, just rolly hills with glacier views surrounding you. It's dramatically striking for sure.
Absolutely. These photos are stunning. And is that truly the color of Lake Louise?
Yes, yes. The lakes will change color slightly as the season go on. The guides will kind of explain why the lakes are different colors. But right now, because it's the big melt of snow, there's so much sediment coming into the water. That pastel blue color is true. I was there 2 days ago, just making sure the lake was still there and the trail were still accessible for some personal hiking. And yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. And before we move further, Josh, I just wanted to mention two things that I think is really important for that trip is the Rockies being fairly high elevation up north. We need to keep in mind the lights. So especially at this time of year, it doesn't get dark till 11. So in past year, what we've recommended for guests is bring an eye mask. Otherwise, it's really hard to go to sleep at night. And a warm sleeping bag. It's not because it's summer that it's not cold. Nights can be a little cooler, especially in the tent. So having those two things with you when you come on that trip will really make a difference, I think.
That's great. And I'm sure all those items are covered in the detailed packing list that guests would
Yes.
receive prior
Yes.
to the trip. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, fabulous. All right. This one sounds truly unique to me. I'm anxious to learn more about the Canadian Rockies winter adventure. Other than the obvious of this happening in the winter, what really makes this trip stand out? And who is this trip ideal for?
So this trip is ideal for people who want a winter adventure. You want to experience the snow. It's really great for for people that are not used to winter. If you're coming from a warm climate and you want to kind of dip your toes without committing to a ski vacation or anything like that, that trip is perfect for that. And if you've never experienced any kind of snowshoeing days or winter hikes, that really is the trip for you. Um, what I really like about that trip, it's a full 6 days in Banff. So it's based out of Banff, and then we do outlet hikes throughout the week. And something that's so different to the other two trip is the amount of visitors that we'll see on the trip. So, Banff is a very popular location. We get just over 4 million visitors. Most of it is in the summer. Some cool facts or fun facts, I should say, about Banff is Parks Canada estimate that about 8% of visitors throughout the year will leave pavement on their trip. So if your friends have been to Banff and tell you, it's really busy, they're not wrong. But the amount of people that we actually see on the trail in comparison to the people that are coming to visit the park is so slight. And then moving to winter, you see even less people. So on that trip, like when we ran it this winter, it was not uncommon that on any given days we would see maybe another pair of hikers on the trail. You would be kind of on your own. So it really kind of gives you a different aspect for that trip. But it's really ideal for those seeking, like we said, the magical winter. Winter is it's its own thing. The parks changes into such a different aspect. It slows down. It's just I love winter. That's part of the reason why I live in the Rockies. We have long winters, and just the change that we see throughout the winter, whether it's from January all the way to April, you'll see something different throughout those months.
Yeah. If you've never done snowshoeing or a winter trip like this, what should you be aware of? How do you plan for this trip and what do you need to pack?
So for that trip, it's like for all trips, I think it's really important to follow the packing list that we provide you. We put a lot of thought and effort into really putting on those lists what you should have. But the winter it's even more important because you'll be exposed to all different types of weather, whether it's cold or windy days. So having definitely like warm layers, lots of them, I'd say it's the most important things because then you can change throughout the day. If you get warm or you get cold, you want to be able to really adjust to stay comfortable. Having warm boots, it's so important just because you'll be outside for a number of hours, and we don't always have the flexibility to go back to the van right away. And if you're coming from a warm climate where buying those items is not really possible for you, you can always shop in Banff. Banff has so many shops that you can find all that equipment prior to your trip, so you don't have to worry about it. The local company, the local shops here, sorry, will be able to help you. And yeah, like just be prepared for an adventure outside in the winter.
Yeah.
We'll supply you with the snowshoes. We'll show you how to use them. It's not hard to use. We don't do snowshoeing into crazy deep powder, and if we do end up finding deep powder, the guides will be kind enough to break the trail for you guys. We'll pack it down for you so it's not excruciating work, because it can be a lot of work snowshoeing in deep powder, but it's not going to be the case on most of the days there. And we'll provide you the equipment. Like I said, we'll show you how to use it, really using the pole to your advantage. And yeah, I mean, get ready for awesome days. It's probably one of my favorite trips just because of the winter aspect of it.
Yeah, those dramatic scenes, those contrasts of colors with the blue skies and the snow. But I think most importantly to me that no crowds, just truly being able to embrace nature. And great to know. I don't need my own snowshoes. You'll provide those and have them there for us.
Yeah. So equipment that we'll provide really is the snowshoes, ice cleats. So there's days where we're not snowshoeing every day. There's days where we don't really need them. But what we do use is ice cleats that goes underneath your boots so you don't slide on ice. Poles, like I was mentioning with snowshoeing, it's really nice. And even with hiking, it just gives you that extra comfort and balance. We'll also supply you with the hands and toe warmers every day. So the way we work, we'll meet you in the morning at the lobby of the hotel, hand you out your lunch. So the lunch on that trip, it's all made from scratch from us, the guides. So you'll be provided every day with sandwiches, but also hot soup in the individual thermoses. So each day the soup changes. They're all vegan-based soup. It's all vegetable soup. So it's, to keep you warm on the trail, it really helps. So make sure, you come ready for that. So having kind of a larger backpack, like 20-liter or more, it's definitely necessary for that trip to be able to fit all your equipment. But yeah, that trip, I mean, apart from that, there's nothing quite like it, honestly, in Banff right now. There's no one else that kind of sees what we're seeing. And, judging from what we've heard back from our guests from previous winters, it's a spectacular and amazing trip for sure.
I mean, just the thought of sitting in these locations of these photos here and enjoying a homemade cup of soup is amazing.
Yeah, like if you look at those photos, like we can talk about a bit more of when the trip runs. So for instance, the photo on the far left, that's taken on the Sherbrooke Lake Day, sorry, and that was a New Year's trip. So you can see the trees are just caked with snow. So early in the season, like December, January, February, you're most likely to get a lot of that, like snowy days. You'll get days where you'll see the mountains too. Don't worry about it. We don't get a ton of snowfall in the Rockies, but we do get some. There's been trips where I remember coming back to the van and there's a foot and a half of snow in the van and just snowed on you. It just creates such a different aspect. And then if you do decide to come when it's quote unquote warmer or as spring approaches, like the top photo, that's our April trip from this year. You can expect a bit more of that, longer days, a lot more sunshine, but that doesn't mean that winter won't happen again. Those trips sometimes are more prevalent to I call them the four season in one day. So you can be, caught in the blizzard. Next minute it's snowy, it's perfectly sunny. Next minute it's decided to sleet a little bit. So it's really an adventure as the week progresses. And then along the way we'll have stops that, sites that kind of they get overseen sometimes by other people. For instance, the one at the bottom there, that's a view of Castle Mountain. Castle Mountain is really interesting because it's the division between both mountain range that we have in the Rockies. It's the start of the main range, so bigger mountains, taller mountains. And then to the right of it, you can see it in this photo, it's the front range, so you get more of a wave shape up to the mountain. So it's really that trip kind of brings you into those elements and also crossing the Continental Divide multiple times that week. It's really unique about that trip.
It sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've kind of gone through all three of these trips, and I saw all three of them are rated as level 3, even though they all sound sort of uniquely different. What does that mean, and what can I expect for daily activities?
For sure. So for level 3s, I'll start with the summer trip. You can expect, roughly 7 miles, sometimes less, sometimes a bit more each day. Elevation changes like you see here, about 1,200 to 2,000 feet. And then depending on the day and the time of year you're here, mid-60s, like today it's roughly that, 65 outside. It can get warmer. So, being in the summer, we have more access to the trail. So like expect more elevation starting at higher elevation. Like the photo here is from Wilcox Pass, like I was mentioning on the camping trip. That's, you start at higher elevation. So just kind of keeping that in mind. So summer days, longer trails, longer mileage. And then winters, the reason why winters level 3 trips is the element. So, naturally in the winter, standing in the cold, you'll be burning more calories because, your body just needs fuel sources to stay warm. So that's one thing. Second is the condition. Like if we get days, and we've had those days where even though we're on a trail, but it's 2 feet of snow the night before, the trail breaking aspect, walking into soft snow, it's a bit more engaging. That's why the distances in the winters tend to be a bit shorter, more around the 5-mile kind of range there, and elevation up to just under 1,900 feet of elevation gain. Still good elevation in the day, enough to keep you warm. But that's really why the discrepancy is here. And then the temperature, I'm not gonna lie to you, it can get really cold in the winter. So, and when it does get cold, we're a bit more proactive in our approach to the days, where we might start a little later, kind of condense our day a little bit. So we don't want to be outside for too long, but that doesn't mean we don't go outside. We're always going to go adventuring. We just may modify it with the condition, but that's really the differences in the levels between the summer and the winter trips.
Very helpful. Thank you so much. And as expected, it sounds like the guides so intimately familiar with the area, know how to sort of make adjustments based on weather and temperatures, especially on that winter trip, make changes to yield the best experience. That sounds fantastic. Mountain Travel Sobek is really honored. We're blessed to have some of the best guides in the industry, beyond having the essential skills and certifications required to deliver and ensure a safe experience. Our guides are passionate about the areas that they share with the guests. Etienne, you continue to demonstrate that today in your knowledge and how you've dedicated your professional life and your craft to this area and these activities. We're so excited that you're with us and able to share this knowledge and passion of the Canadian Rockies. Why is guiding so important to you? You know, what is it that you really look forward to the most to share with your guests?
I mean, for me personally, obviously the kind of the important pillars of guiding, which is caretaking, the safety aspect, those are definitely at the forefront. But really, what for me guiding, what kind of sets us apart from others is all the guides that we have leading those trips that we have here with Mountain Travel Sobeks are local, so they all live in the area. They're all not only deeply passionate about it, they want to be outside with you. They want to take you to those places. And for us, you know, like I can speak from personal experience, like we know the trails intimately. We know where to go. And sometimes it's just like I'm thinking right now of our winter trip when we go to Sherbrooke Lake. There's an area of the trail that kind of cuts into the forest. It seems like nothing, but I always take a little side trip to the left, and people are always like, "What is he doing?" And I'm like, "Let me just take you to that spot because there's a spot there, and it's creating that wow factor." Really, what's drives our kind of mindset here is it's showing you those, look at this, or this is that because of that. So really sharing the local aspect of the area, the cultural aspect, but also creating like, you speak to any of our guides and something they always kind of mention back to me is, oh yeah, I was hiking along and all of a sudden I came around this corner and I just hear, oh my God, or oh wow. Those are the small things for us. I think it really makes it worth it. And that's the difference, I think, with if you do decide to travel alone versus traveling with guides. That's the difference of you can be guaranteed if, let's say, the trails get closed for whatever reason, we'll be able to pivot and find you something just as good around the corner. There's also access now in Banff. Access is getting more limited to some areas, like Morin Lake and Lake Louise. If you're not with a guiding companies, you have to book shuttles, and it's kind of it's challenging now to visit some of the areas of the park because they're so popular. But with us, we're always going to have the access. We have all the permits, so it really facilitates the experience for you. It's the stress-free experience, really,
Right.
and that's what makes it, I think, worth it to go with guides.
That's a great point, and it really allows your guests to maximize their time there. They don't have
Correct.
to sit and think about what hike to do or what restaurant to eat at that night.
Exactly.
Right. They can just be in the moment and then experience it from a knowledgeable local expert.
Yes, absolutely.
It's fantastic. Well, we talked about a lot of trips here, and I just quickly, if for our guests that are attending today, if any of these sound interesting to you, or please, if you have further questions that you don't get to today, give us a call. We've got experts standing by. Our sales specialist would love to chat with you on the phone, 1-800-974-0300, or reach out to us on our website. We've talked about our summer trips offering ideal hiking temperatures. We've also talked about our really unique winter trip that allows solitude and just an escape into a winter wonderland. We're standing by to answer questions. And speaking of answering questions, I'd like to open it up now to any questions that may have come in. Etienne, if you got anything else to add, otherwise, I'll please stick around and help answer some of these questions.
I just noticed my camera turned on. It wasn't turning on the entire call. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
but
no.
yeah, please, if you have any questions in regards to the trips, what to do, sometimes it's just having that, what am I doing before or after the trip? Should I extend my trip? Those are all good questions. If you have any, be more than happy to help.
Etienne, first, I want to thank you for your time, your expertise. Thank you for joining us, our attendees on the call. Thank you all. for giving us your time, your attention. We do have a question that came in here. It's regarding the camping trip. And you had mentioned was it 5 campgrounds or 5 tents? What this individual is asking is if they're traveling alone, will they be required to share a tent with another guest, or do they get their own tent?
Absolutely. So sorry, let me clarify. So we booked 5 sites, 4 of which are for tents. Yeah, I'm really sorry. But sometimes French Canadian English is my second language. I'm really sorry. So depending on how you book, if you are booking as a solo traveler but you're willing to share, then you'd be sharing a tent. Our tents are large 4-person tents, so that would be in double occupancy. If you do not want to share your tent or your hotel room, you can choose a single supplement, and that will give you your own hotel room in Banff as well as your home tent at the campground. And usually for those, we use a 2-person tent that you don't have to share with anyone.
Fantastic. Thanks for that clarity. And it sounds like there's ample room in those tents as well.
Yes. Oh yeah. They're huge. They're like condos.
Especially if you live in New York, huh? Etienne, how are the bugs in the summertime?
So we don't have a lot of stagnant water here in the Rockies. And what I mean by that is we don't have a lot of kind of swampy areas. So bugs are, I mean, you do see them. I mean, we do have some of them, but it's nothing like if you're from the Northeast, for instance. Like I grew up in Quebec, so I know folks that are in New York or Massachusetts, Maine. I know you guys know about bugs, you know, to the point where they can pick you up and drop you off down the road. It's not the case for us. Generally speaking, we're out on the trail. The wind really helps to keep them away. But being, you know, mostly all glacial-fed lakes around where we're camping, especially, and around Banff, they don't have that possibility to hatch as much. And for instance, like this year, we've had very little rain. So sometimes in the spring, when we get a pretty rainy spring, that's when you do see a bit more bugs. But generally speaking, it's very manageable. It's not like going to British Columbia, kind of interior British Columbia or near Vancouver, where it's definitely different. And I think I saw in one of the questions about the bugs, if you have those, it's like a deodorant stick for, you know, after bites, really helps. We do have bug spray in the van, so if you think, you know, if you're going crazy about bugs and, you know, they're swarming you, because sometimes, like, for instance, when I hike with my partner, she gets no bugs, I get all of them if there's some out there, so I'm the one where the bug spray. But yeah, it's very manageable.
Okay, right. You talked about the summer crowds. How crowded are the trails with other hikers?
It really depends where we're going. There's definitely trails like the super popular trail in Banff. We try to avoid them all. Trails like Johnson Canyon, which is part of our winter trip. We don't go close to it in the summer just because it's so popular. In the Lake Louise area, there's days where we will see other people on the trail, but it's not to the point where it's just, you know, I like to call it bumper to bumper. Everybody understands that. It doesn't happen. And what usually happens in those busy areas is the first few kilometers. So sorry, you guys, I know we're in miles, but the first few miles, you may see more people, and then it just kind of wheezes off after a few miles. Generally speaking, people are more after getting that quick photo or that Instagrammable moment, and then they're back to their cars. So for us on those days, like when we go to Eiffel Lake, for instance, Morin Lake, it's super busy at the lake. And then we get to the turn off with the busy trails there. And it's, you know, you'll see a handful of people. And usually where we have our lunch there, oftentimes last summer when we were leading that trip, we'd see no one else, you know. So it comes, and it's also good to have the guides, because the guides can be like, tomorrow morning we're leaving at that time to beat the crowds,
right?
You know, to certain location. That's part also of why I would say going with the guides is really helpful. Is just to be able to go and bounce those areas and get away from people.
Great call. Yeah. Here's a great question that came in. What sort of planning contingency do you think about with regard to wildfires?
Yes. So we've lived that situation actually last summer in Jasper. We had a group that was there when they got evacuated. So the way we work with it is we have an operational plan of what to do in a wildfire situation. And then each situation are a little different. Like for instance, I can talk about the Jasper one where we knew that the town over, as a small town called Valemount, was going to get overrun right away with all the people flooding out of Jasper because that was the only exit point. So what we decided to do is we pushed our group further into a town called Kamloops, where there's an airport. So if people didn't feel comfortable following or keep staying on the trip, they could fly out of there. But we drove, a couple hours away from the fire to really kind of separate itself from the situation. But in terms of wildfires here, Parks Canada has done an amazing job at doing wildfire prevention, especially in the Lake Louise and Banff area, by cutting huge fire breaks around the town now. It's all happened during the winter. They have sprinkler system. So really what we do is, for us, our guides will, at the end of each day, you'll see one of the guides on the camping trip, for instance, they'll go back to the gas station, even to put $5, $10 worth of gas. We always have full tank of gas. And we're always, they have in reach satellite device. So if there's something happening, they can be made aware faster. We have radio systems, so we're listening to the parks channel. So if they're thinking of evacuating or anything like that, our guides will know, generally speaking, before the rest of the public, and then we get in motion our plan for sure.
That's fantastic. Just a quick one on the winter trip. There seems to be a lot of options out there with hiking shoes, what work best for snowshoeing. Some, think about using normal waterproof hiking shoes, others perhaps insulated hiking shoes or boots. And then there's some that use dedicated snow boots.
Right.
What do you recommend?
I personally, I've lived in winter landscapes my whole life. I don't like getting cold. So I personally have a full-on winter boot, one that comes, right underneath your knees. And that's a personal preference. They're not dedicated for hiking, but I'm willing to sacrifice that hiking performance for more warmth, and that's just a personal kind of preference there. I will definitely steer you away from shoes. I think shoes are the worst ideas in winter. You can get some really high quality hiking boots that are winterized. Like Salomon makes some really good product that comes a bit higher above your ankles, and in conjunction with a good pair of gaiters, that will really help to keep the snow out of your boots. Really good socks. If you want to be like me, like I said, I hate getting cold. I have heated socks, so they have a battery and an element to the socks. You crank them, it's beautiful. Sometimes I even throw the toe warmers in, just because I've really abused my feet over the years, for skiing and stuff like that. So I'm a bit more susceptible to getting cold faster. But for folks just having good insulated winter boots, if you want to go for the full-on boots, it's you can't go wrong with that. And then good gaiters, so preventing snow from entering your boots, and good snow pants. Sometimes we see people with just the normal hiking pants. I'll steer you away from that as well. If you can get kind of a fleece pants with some kind of membrane on the outside that is water repellent, that's definitely the go-to. Or just ski pants. They work great and they keep you warm.
Heated boots. There's something new.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That sounds luxurious.
I'm Canadian. I have to have them.
Etienne, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, your expertise, your passion. It really shines through. guests attending, listening today, thank you all so much for your time. A recorded copy of this will be sent out to you to the email address that you registered with. Again, if you have additional questions or just want to chat about any of the trips we talked about today, contact information is there on the screen, our website, email address, as well as telephone number. Etienne, again, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Sorry again for
have
my
a great
camera.
season.
Well, thank you guys. Hopefully we'll get to see you guys in the Rockies at some point here. I'd love to meet you all. Yeah, it's going to be an amazing summer ahead. We're looking forward to it.